Your brother gets the company, and well, you get my prayers and eternal blessings, Mom said, her frail hand squeezing mine as Dad's lawyer shuffled papers across the mahogany conference table. The $5 million construction empire I'd helped build for 15 years went to Marcus, while I inherited what the lawyer called intangible assets of immeasurable value. Who knew the IRS would find those prayers more valuable than cooked books? The funeral had been 3 days ago. Dad's casket was still fresh in the ground when we gathered in the law office that smelled of leather and old coffee. Marcus sat across from me, unable to hide his smirk behind his fake grief. He'd always been Dad's golden boy, the one who golfed with him on Sundays, who laughed at his crude jokes, who never questioned why our company won so many city contracts despite never being the lowest bidder. Natalie, honey, don't look so disappointed, Mom whispered, misreading my expression. Your father had his reasons. I wasn't disappointed. I was calculating. 15 years I'd spent building Sullivan Construction from a 2-truck operation into a regional powerhouse. 15 years of 16-hour days, of smoothing over Dad's temper with clients, of making sure projects actually got completed while Marcus glad-handed at country clubs. My MBA from Northwestern, my innovative project management systems, my relationships with every major supplier in the tri-state area, apparently worth less than Marcus's ability to mirror Dad's backslapping, bourbon-drinking persona. The house in Clearwater goes to my wife, along with the investment accounts, the lawyer droned on. Mom nodded serenely, as if she hadn't spent 30 years keeping Dad's books, as if she didn't know exactly what those investment accounts contained. To my daughter Natalie, I leave my collection of first edition books and my father's watch. The book collection was worth maybe $3,000. The watch, a sentimental Timex. Marcus couldn't contain himself anymore. Don't worry, Nat. I'm sure there's a place for you at the company. Maybe in accounting. You were always good with numbers. I smiled. That's kind of you, Marcus. I think I'll take some time off first. Process everything. What I didn't tell him was that I'd already processed everything. Every falsified invoice. Every inflated material cost. Every kickback disguised as a consulting fee. You see, while Marcus was learning to swing golf clubs, I was learning to read between the lines of financial statements. While he was sharing scotch with Dad, I was backing up files that documented 10 years of systematic tax evasion. The meeting ended with Marcus shaking hands like he'd just closed the deal of the century. Mom hugged me, whispering more about prayers and how God had a plan. The lawyer gave me a box with the books and the watch. I walked out of that office with nothing but cardboard and costume jewelry, yet I felt lighter than I had in years. You sure you're okay? My best friend Elena asked when I met her for drinks that evening. We sat at our usual spot at Berninger's, a wine bar that Marcus would call pretentious because they didn't serve beer. I'm better than okay, I said, swirling a glass of Malbec. I'm free. Free? Natalie, your brother just stole your inheritance. Your dad just screwed you over from beyond the grave. Did he go? I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken that morning. See that? It's a bunch of filing cabinets. It's my new office. I signed a lease this morning. Sullivan Consulting. I'm going independent. Elena's eyes widened. With what clients? Marcus controls all the company contacts. Marcus controls the clients who are used to paying 20% over market rate for construction services. I'm targeting the ones who actually want their projects completed on time and within legitimate budgets. What I didn't tell Elena, what I couldn't tell anyone yet, was that I'd already had 3 meetings lined up. Former clients who quietly expressed frustration with Sullivan Construction's billing practices. Companies that had questioned discrepancies but been smooth-talked by Marcus or strong-armed by Dad. They were interested in working with someone who understood the industry but operated with integrity. The first 6 months were brutal. I lived off my savings, worked out of a cramped office that had previously been a massage therapy studio. The smell of lavender oil seemed permanently embedded in the walls. Marcus, meanwhile, was living large. He bought a yacht, named it Dynasty, posted photos from the Bahamas, Vegas, Miami. Mom called occasionally, always ending with "I'm praying for you, honey." Praying I'll fail? I asked once bitterly. My path, as it turned out, led straight through the Department of Transportation's procurement office. Sheila Rodriguez, a procurement officer I'd dealt with for years, called me one afternoon. Natalie, I shouldn't be calling you, but did you know Sullivan Construction just bid on the new highway project? Let me guess. Lowest bid by exactly 1%. How did you know? Because that was Dad's formula. Underbid by just enough to secure the contract, then make up the difference with change orders and material substitutions. Lucky guess. Sheila, can I ask you something? Off the record? Sure. Have you ever wondered how Sullivan's Concrete always passes inspection when their material costs are 30% below market rate? The silence on the other end told me everything. Sheila knew. They all knew. But Dad had been careful, spreading enough money around to keep questions from being asked too loudly. Marcus, however, was not careful. Marcus was greedy. Month 8 was when I got my first major client. Brennan Development hired me to consult on a strip mall project. They'd fired Sullivan Construction after multiple deadline failures and cost overruns. I brought the project in 2 weeks early and under budget. Word spread. By month 10, I had 6 steady clients and 2 employees. Marcus called me on a Tuesday. Heard you're doing well for yourself. I'm doing okay. Maybe we could work together. Throw some subcontracting your way. Family helping family, you know. That's generous, Marcus, but I'm pretty busy with my own projects. Come on, Nat. Don't be proud. I'm trying to help you here. What he was trying to do was get me under his thumb. Make me dependent on Sullivan Construction's contracts so he could control me like Dad had controlled everyone. I appreciate it, but I'm good. You always were too stubborn. Just like. He caught himself before saying Mom, but we both knew that's where he was going. Anyway, offer stands. Month 12 brought an unexpected visitor. Thomas Chen, and yes, I know he said not to use that name, so let's call him Thomas Brenner, appeared at my office on a Thursday afternoon. He was IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Miss Sullivan, I'm investigating some irregularities in construction contracts involving federal funding. My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not sure how I can help. I've only been independent for a year. But you worked at Sullivan Construction for 15 years prior. You must have seen how the contracts were handled. Here was the moment, the crossroads. I could play dumb, protect the family name, keep Marcus's secrets. Or I could tell the truth. Agent Brenner, would you like some coffee? This might take a while. We talked for 3 hours. I didn't volunteer information about the falsified invoices or the cooked books. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I explained industry standards, typical pricing structures, normal markup rates. I let him draw his own conclusions about why Sullivan Construction's numbers never quite added up. When he asked for documentation, I mentioned that all company files were maintained by the current CEO. I wouldn't have access to any of that anymore, I said. Marcus was very clear about me turning over all company property when I left. Agent Brenner smiled slightly. Of course. Though if you happen to remember any specific contracts that might illustrate these industry standards, that would be helpful. I wrote down 3 contract numbers on a post-it note. 3 contracts I knew had the most egregious overcharges. If they pulled those threads, the whole tapestry would unravel. Mom called that Sunday. Natalie, honey, how are you? I've been praying for you extra hard this week. Any particular reason? Just a feeling. Mother's intuition. You know, Marcus has been working such long hours lately. Lots of meetings with lawyers. Business must be good. Mom's noncommittal hum spoke volumes. Natalie, I want you to know something. Your father, he wasn't always a good man. But he did love you, in his way. Mom. He thought he was protecting you, keeping you clean of it all. He said Marcus had the stomach for it. But you had too much of me in you. Too much conscience. My throat tightened. You knew. I knew enough. Prayed every night for God to sort it all out. Looks like he's starting to. The raid happened on a Tuesday. Federal agents descended on Sullivan Construction with warrants and boxes. Marcus called me screaming. What did you do? What did you tell them? I told them about industry standards, Marcus. If your books don't match industry standards, that's not my fault. You vindictive. The string of expletives that followed would have made Dad proud. I offered you help. I tried to bring you back in. You tried to control me. There's a difference. The investigation took 6 months. They found everything. The invoice padding, the material substitutions, the kickbacks, the tax evasion. 10 years of fraudulent federal contracts. The U.S. Attorney's Office built an airtight case, and Marcus's golf buddy suddenly didn't return his calls. Mom moved in with me during the trial. Her prayers had become more specific by then. Lord, grant the prosecutors wisdom. Give the judge discernment. Help the jury see the truth. It was like listening to a very polite mob boss order hits. You could have just told me, I said one evening as we watched the news coverage. About Dad, about the company. And make you complicit? No, honey. Sometimes the best gift a parent can give is ignorance. She patted my hand. Besides, I knew you'd figure it out. You always were the smart one. Marcus got 15 years. The company was liquidated to pay fines and restitution. The yacht, the cars, the house, all gone. I sat in a courtroom as they read the verdict, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just a hollow sense of ending. Afterward, I drove Mom to the cemetery. We stood at Dad's grave in silence for a long while. Do you think he'd be angry? I asked. Furious, Mom said, but maybe proud too. You built something honest, something that will last. That's more than he ever did. My consulting firm thrived in the wake of Sullivan Construction's collapse. Clients appreciated working with someone who understood the industry's dark corners but chose to operate in the light. I hired more people, moved to a bigger office, one that didn't smell like lavender. I even bought a condo downtown, paid cash. Elena and I still meet for drinks at Berninger's every week. Last Tuesday, she raised her glass to prayers answered in mysterious ways. To inheritance that can't be taxed, I replied. We clinked glasses and drank. Outside, the city hummed with construction projects, legitimate ones with honest budgets and real timelines. My phone buzzed with emails from clients, but I ignored them. Success could wait an hour. Marcus wrote me a letter from federal prison last month. A rambling thing full of accusations and self-pity. I read it once, then filed it away. Maybe someday I'll feel something other than indifference. Maybe someday I'll visit him, let him rant in person. But not yet. Mom still prays, of course. These days, her prayers are mostly gratitude. Thank you for giving Natalie wisdom. Thank you for justice. Thank you for second chances. She's teaching me to pray too, though I'm not very good at it. My prayers tend to sound more like business plans. The Timex still keeps perfect time. I wear it every day, a reminder that the most valuable inheritances aren't always obvious. The first edition books line my office shelves, mostly unread but beautiful. Clients sometimes ask about them, and I tell them they were my father's. He must have been quite a reader, they usually say. He was complicated. I reply, which is the truest thing I can offer. This morning, I signed the papers to acquire a small construction company, a legitimate one that just needs better management. I'm keeping their name, their employees, their reputation. I'm just adding my systems, my integrity, my approach. Building something new on a foundation that's already solid. Mom asked if I was sure I wanted to get back into construction. It's what I know, I told her. But I'll do it right this time. I'll pray for you, she said, and for once I was grateful. So here I sit, in my debt-free condo, sipping wine and watching the sunset paint the city gold. The IRS audit that destroyed my brother made me rich in ways that have nothing to do with money. Turns out, inheriting prayers and blessings was the better deal all along. Though I still think Dad could have just left me the company and saved everyone a lot of trouble.